Hey guys, how are you doing today? So today is going to be part one of my story of basically the journey I have taken to get here today. Um, I've been wanting to share this for a while, and I promised it a long time ago, and now is finally the time to share. I'm gonna try to do the quick and detailed version. um, so starting off, let's see all the factors that have contributed. So at a very early age, my parents divorced. From I don't know when it started, but as a child I was asthmatic. So a lot of respiratory distress. My babysitter was a smoker, so that didn't help either. So I had a lot of kind of in the early years, I had a hard time being physically active. And so in these, first, I don't know, 10 years of my life, my cardiovascular system did not develop in the way that most children's do. So that really held me back. Looking back, I had a lot of other physical symptoms. I do remember very vaguely, but I do remember there being a lot of digestive trouble, a lot of insomnia, having a hard time sleeping. As a child, I think back as a kid, and I was never really carefree. I was always like kind of stressed out. I worried about things, and you're not supposed to when you're a kid, but I did. I was a bit of a loner child, and yeah, so there was signs of a previous video I talked about candida, so there were definitely symptoms of candida. Issues such as yeast infections that only adults generally get. I had as a child, and constipation and that type of thing. Diet-wise, I basically lived on bread and butter. If my parents got, they used to get takeout Italian a lot, and they would get me just like noodles with butter, and that was my thing. Bread and butter, noodles with butter. I basically like lived on white foods. If we went out for food, I always ate off the kids menu, and I would say 99% of the time I got chicken fingers and fries. And this was probably I ate off the kids menu until I was like maybe 18 years old. And this is not to say that I didn't like healthy foods. It's just, I don't know, the option. I always loved cucumbers. I used to do cucumber with sea salt. I always liked broccoli. I didn't like eating the stem, but I loved the florets. Carrots, I would only eat them raw. I would not eat them cooked. I always loved fruit. We always had frozen strawberries in my freezer because we would pick tons in the summer. But it was just, being a kid and growing up in the 80s and early 90s, and it's just kind of how it went. So anyway, that was my body in the early years. There was a lot of stress with family, and I think a lot of these things manifested. So as I entered my teen years, and as I started getting into, as a lot of girls do, a lot of kind of somewhat dysfunctional relationships, and I take a lot of blame. I was not a good communicator, and so anyway, when I really started to realize something was wrong, it was late in my teens. I would say I was probably like 16, 17, 18. Yeah, probably 17, 18 is when it really started, that I would get a lot of inflammation in my stomach. A lot. Like my pants, I couldn't do them up anymore. It was a little bit beyond a food baby, and it was all the time. and at the same time, I was experiencing a lot of stress in my life. I was having a hard time focusing in school, again with the insomnia, and I wasn't very active because I didn't have the beginning. I feel like, I mean, looking back on it now, I feel like because my cardio was not developed at a young age, I hated gym class. I always felt out of breath and my chest hurt, and I would always get cramps in my stomach, even if I went for like a brisk walk. Like I remember being on vacation and us walking around, and my stomach would just kill from tight cramps, and it happened to me all the time. So it wasn't until my late teens or early 20s where I even started to be active and started to really discover the value. Now, from age, let's see, probably 8 to 13, I did figure skate once a week. That was basically the only activity I did. I liked the dance aspect of it. I always wanted to be a dancer. It's kind of how I fell into yoga. I just love the fluid movement. But I was not very strong. I enjoyed the fun outfits, and it was something for me to do. And yeah, so anyway, moving back, my symptoms, yeah, a lot of inflammation. And it got to the point I couldn't take a deep breath, and it was bloated all the time. It connected, the gut and the brain. With the research I've done, there's such an intimate connection. They're the first two organs that form when the fetus is developing in a mother. The brain and I think it's I don't know what they call it, but the neural tube and what becomes the gut, I think they grow right up against each other, and then the neural tube connects to the brain. Like there's such and ongoing for our entire life. There's such an intimate connection between the brain and the gut. So there's, along with my inflammation, my focus went away. I was having a hard time in school, and in my last year, and I ended up taking a year off after high school, and I fell into a really deep depression. In I think it was when I was in grade 11, so I had changed schools, I had changed groups of friends, everything had changed for me. And this is something that, I don't know if it's connected or not, but I figure if I'm sharing, I might as well share. I've talked about it enough that I'm willing to share. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but at the age of 17, I was attacked by a man in a public park, and that, I think, kind of took me over the edge. My body was already in a sensitive state with my inflammation, lack of absorption of nutrients, and I think that experience really really weighed on me and really kind of just took me over the edge. It really it did a lot to my self-esteem and trusting people out in public, and I'm still trying to shake these patterns that I created. It was a really really intense experience, and ongoing. It affected a lot of my relationships in the next couple of years, because it was a physical, non-consensual attack. Yeah, so a lot happened. But the inflammation got really bad, and around 2021, a couple years into it, it got to the point where people were asking me how far along I was. It was just like, it was huge. There were times when I couldn't see my feet. It was unreal. And when I went to my doctor, and she said, you just need to exercise more, I just had enough. And that's kind of the, as much of the details as I could think of. that's kind of the end of part one, is where we ended there, and from that spot is when I started my search. And so I want you guys to watch out tomorrow for part two, where I will talk about my search for answers with my health. And see you later. If you like the video, like it, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye.